What is up, guys? Rick Kakis here, and today we are going to be discussing what is supposedly a Destiny 2 information leak. Now, right off the bat, so there's no misconceptions, I want to emphasize the word supposedly. This information for the leak is really not coming from the most reliable source. It comes from kind of a random Reddit user who made a post saying, "Look, I know you guys probably aren't going to believe me, but I'm friends with someone who works at Bungie, and every once in a while we talk about Destiny 2. This is kind of like a composition of all the stuff we've talked about and all of the stuff I want to share with you guys about Destiny 2. Now, if you're familiar with the game industry, there should be a ton of red flags going up right now. There certainly was for me. Anytime someone says, my friend or someone I know or my uncle or whoever works wherever, usually that information is not the most reliable. So, take all of the information that you're going to hear in today's video with a big grain of salt, because there is definitely a possibility that all of this stuff from this post is completely made up. And actually, because of all of those reasons, I was really considering just not covering this story. But then I thought, you know what, for the most part, we're all adults here, and I'm just going to bring you guys this information. I'm going to lay the cards out right away at the beginning of the video on the table, where this information is coming from, and the fact that it's not super reliable. But at the end of the day, you guys should be able to make up your own minds about this information. I shouldn't be keeping you out of the loop. And who knows, this information may actually truly be a leak. Bungie has 750 employees working for it, and that's not counting all of the Activision employees involved, all of the completely other development studios that have been brought in to work on Destiny 2. All of those people can't be expected to take unbreakable oaths of silence. I'm sure some of them have told their friends a little bit too much. So, with all of that being said, let's get started and cover this supposed leaked information. And the first point being made here is that they are not completely rebooting our characters. Essentially what this means is that there will be a clean slate, in quotation marks, in Destiny 2, but not a full wipe. So no, you won't be able to carry your god roll Matador 64 into Destiny 2. Your direct weapons and armor won't transfer. At least this is what is being said. In my opinion, that's good. I do not want 3 more years of the current Destiny gun system. I would love to see the franchise evolve, but I already made a video on that. That's another story. But rather, instead of a full wipe, which there's not going to be, your character will still maintain memories and accomplishments from the original Destiny. So hopefully you will be rewarded for what your character did, what you were able to accomplish in the original Destiny. Likely that's going to be through cosmetic features, certain emblems or shaders or what have you based on your accomplishments in Destiny 1. And if they are going to do that, I really hope they go really in depth with that feature. You know, I want specific things for beating the Vault of Glass on hard mode, and then entirely different things for being Crota's End, etc. Your accomplishments should be remembered in Destiny 2, and that sounds like what is happening. Moving on, the next main point is that there will be 3 new subclasses from the jump of Destiny 2. So the 3 existing classes with Hunter, Titan, and Warlock, and their current subclasses, so the Hunters, Gunslinger, Blade Dancer, and Night Stalker, all going to be the same. Well, somewhat the same. I'm sure there are going to be pretty substantial tweaks, but there is also going to be a 4th subclass added right out of the gate. This is definitely possible. Bungie is going to have to do something in terms of class diversity for Destiny 2. People are not going to be thrilled if they buy a full price game with Destiny 2, log on, and they see, oh, a Titan with, Yep, the same 3 subclasses I already had. Now remember, the source says that these same 3 subclasses, although they will remain the same in name and likely overall function, they are going to be reworked. So they're going to be different if you were to play them in Destiny 2 versus Destiny 1. But again, people are not going to be happy if it's the same 3 classes, same 3 subclasses. So Bungie will likely have to add something, and an entirely new subclass for each of the existing classes does make sense. Now moving on, the leak claims that Destiny 2, currently slotted for a fall 2017 release date, may see that release date delayed into the first quarter of 2018. This is definitely possible. It happened with Destiny 1, not the same timeline, but it was actually slated for a summer-spring release date and then got moved into the fall, so a delay is entirely possible for Destiny 2. I hope that's not the case. It's kind of weird, like, as a Destiny fan, obviously, I want the game to come out sooner rather than later, but at the same time, I want them to ship a finished product. So, and the one half of me wants it right away, the other half is willing to wait. Hopefully, though, they can get it done by the promised release date and have a finished product. Now, moving on from there, the leak claims that Destiny 2 will be 60 FPS. This makes a ton of sense. Gaming right now, kind of the benchmark for most new games is to hit that 60 FPS marks. Games like Titanfall 2 are all hitting 60 FPS and look absolutely amazing. And you know, when you go from Destiny, which is 30 FPS, and move to a 60 FPS game, there is quite the difference. Not necessarily when you're moving up, but rather if you've been playing a 60 FPS game and then you go back to Destiny, it is just visually sluggish. Like, it feels sluggish. So I really hope it can get upgraded to 60 FPS. And again, this makes a lot of sense, especially because Destiny, especially the hardcore infrastructure, was really held back because the game had to come out on last-gen consoles, on the PS3, on the Xbox 360, and those games definitely couldn't handle Destiny with its wide-open vistas and many enemies and stuff like that with 60 FPS. And it would have been a lot of hours and manpower spent on rewriting the engine so that it would run on 60 FPS on the new-gen consoles, so they just made it 30 across the board. Because the old-gen consoles are being cut out, they've already been cut out for the Rise of Iron, and they're definitely going to be cut out for Destiny 2, it does make sense that it would run at 60 FPS. Next up, we have Powers of the Darkness will be introduced into gameplay. Now, the source doesn't really elaborate on this, but it does kind of make sense. The Darkness was this huge overarching enemy that we heard all about in Destiny, but it didn't really have an overarching, presence. It didn't really have something that you saw in Destiny 1 and you're like, oh, that's the Darkness. Aside maybe from the Taken, although was that the Darkness or was that being taken into just that other dimension or what have you? It was a little bit confusing, so hopefully Destiny 2 emphasizes this idea of the Darkness, explains it better, and showcases its abilities in gameplay. Heck, the new element, or the new feature I should say, for the new subclasses could be the Darkness. Having the Darkness infect, like having a tainted Guardian subclass, but you found your way back to the light. You were tainted by the Darkness, but you found your way back and you're pushing back, but you still have these Darkness-based abilities, right? That's something to potentially consider. Moving on, we have the next points being that raids will be bigger, longer, and much more interesting in terms of mechanics moving forward. Now, I'm mentioning this because the leak mentioned this, but this is very obvious. Like, obviously they're not going to go backwards, like we've made raids simpler and less interesting. Raids have been progressing through Destiny. The Vault of Glass was actually a really good showing. Crota's End maybe actually kind of went backwards, but Taken King really upped the difficulty in terms of mechanics. A lot of people weren't exactly thrilled by that. And then I think that the Wrath of the Machine found a nice balance. But the complication of mechanics in the Wrath of the Machine is definitely, I think, a little bit more so than what the original raids were. So we're likely going to see that continue. And again, without the older consoles kind of holding the game back with an improvement on infrastructure, we should be able to see bigger raids taking place as well. The next point here is very, very interesting. It says that ships will be no longer cosmetic only. You can actually utilize your ship. Now, this may sound, for people who didn't really do research on Destiny 1, kind of out of the blue, but for people who did do research on Destiny 1, I heard for a long time, in fact it was maintained for a very long time, that there will be space battles with your actual ships in Destiny 1. Now that got scrapped from the game. I'm sure a lot of you guys know that Destiny 1 had a really rough development cycle. A lot of things were scrapped. Space battles were likely one of them. I would really love to see them return in Destiny 2. It would be so awesome to actually go out and collect and loot these spaceships and then actually use them in like PvP dogfights. Heck, you could even have space battles be a temporary thing, somewhat like Sparrow Racing, but space battles. Space battles sound so much better than Sparrow Racing in my mind. But here's hoping. Moving on, we have the next point being that they are implementing some kind of transmogrification, whatever that word is, feature. What that means is that essentially you can customize your appearance entirely. So if you have a certain weapon and you love the way it looks, or more likely it's going to be you have a certain armor piece and you love the way it looks so fantastic, you can transfer the stats of other things onto this new armor. So you don't have to just get a specific armor that looks a specific way and then get lucky enough to get the perfect stat rolls. You can now transfer your stat rolls across different appearances. At least that is how that feature works in other video games. Bungie may introduce some sort of version of that, may not have that directly, but it would be nice to, kind of cut down on the massive amount of RNG in Destiny that forces you to get this elusive armor and then get amazing rolls. It would be nice to just be able to change those features or perhaps re-roll certain armor, etc. After that, we have the point that Destiny 2 will be coming to PC. That makes sense. We heard that earlier from Kotaku. That's a much more reliable source, so it really seems like that is a possibility. After that, we have the next point being that user interface will be getting an overhaul with more customization features incoming. So, off the beginning, they didn't even have customization options in the UI for colorblind people. They didn't even have those options. And for the longest time, they didn't have the option to reduce the HUD of your UI. So it makes sense that in Destiny 2, they're going to be continuing along this trend to introduce even more customization options for players in terms of UI. Now after that, we have the point that Eververse will not be as prominent as it is now. This definitely makes me wonder because Bungie and Activision have been having a huge push towards Eververse. All of the live events are really based off Eververse. And in fact, maybe I shouldn't say that because, the Festival of the Cost 2016 was really all about Eververse and Bungie got a lot of flack for that. And the Dawning definitely wasn't as bad. It had some cool armor locked behind Eververse, but it really didn't go full bore like the Festival of the Lost did. So maybe Bungie is taking some of this community feedback to heart because people are really not thrilled right now about the overabundance and the seemingly increasing presence of the Eververse store and microtransactions within Destiny. So maybe backing off that a little bit in terms of Destiny 2 will be the right choice to make. Bungie kind of abandoned the full price DLC model for just the live updates after the Taken King, and I think they may be slightly reconsidering that because with the Rise of Iron, they made a crap ton of money. It was reported that they made more money with the Rise of Iron than they did with the initial Destiny release. That is crazy, but it makes sense. You build this player base and everyone is itching for that more Destiny content. They finally give it to people. Of course, people are going to buy it. Now, some of that money that they made was due to Eververse. People did buy microtransactions that was added on top of it, but perhaps they realized that if they just make decent expansions that people are willing to pay for them, people want more content for Destiny. So we're really going to have to see how that works, kind of that balance between microtransactions and full price DLCs within Destiny 2. Moving on, however, we have the next point being that Xur will play a new role in the overarching story. This makes sense to me. Xur is this mysterious figure of the Nine that, like most things in Destiny, is not explained very well. I wouldn't be surprised to see Xur actually have some sort of story element, where he's from, who the Nine really are, perhaps you going and meeting them. Apparently they have a presence on, I think it's Saturn, and there's been rumors that Saturn and its moons are going to be a main feature in where you go in Destiny 2, so perhaps we're going to see Xur and the agents of the Nine, and the Nine in general and all of that stuff, make a bigger appearance. After that, the next point really just continues what I was just saying, because it says the speaker will be central to the main storyline. This is another character in the original Destiny that really wasn't expanded very much upon, and I said earlier I would love to see more information about the speaker. He's this very interesting figure that not too much is revealed about, so hopefully the speaker will get more of a presence in the Destiny 2 story. And lastly, the last point of this leak is that there will be new non-Guardian races introduced in Destiny 2. So right now we have the Fallen, the Vex, the Cabal, and the Hive, and kind of the Taken, as the enemies you fight. I would be surprised if Destiny 2 releases and doesn't increase these at least by one, and perhaps you have another friendly alien race. I would love to see more allies, more, weird alien creatures, more flora and fauna when you go to these planets. Like, why isn't there native animals roaming these lands? I mean, I suppose right now, because there's no native animals, on Mars right now, or at least we're pretty sure there isn't, but again, it does make sense to have more non-Guardian alien races in Destiny 2. So, and that concludes the supposed leak. Again, this is all to be taken with a grain of salt. This really isn't the most reliable source. However, it's entirely possible. Who knows? All of this stuff could be completely correct, and all of you guys watching this video are potentially way ahead of the curve when it comes to Destiny 2 knowledge. All of the stuff we covered today is honestly kind of likely. Nothing seemed extremely weird or out of place or something that just wouldn't make sense in terms of Destiny 2. If all of this stuff happened, I really wouldn't be too surprised. So maybe that does lend a little bit of credence to its legitimacy, but who knows? Frankly, these could be complete guesses, and they seem to be the direction that Bungie, the gaming industry as a whole, and other game companies are heading in terms of their games. So this stuff, although someone could be making it up, could still very well come true. Again, it makes a lot of sense. But as I said earlier, that's for you guys to decide. I'm bringing you guys this information, and you can do with it as you please. But I hope you enjoyed this video, found it interesting, and if you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you want to see more Destiny content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. If you want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickCacus. That's linked in the description down below, as is my Twitch channel, which you can also follow. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.